everyone, and welcome to another Scotsway podcast. And this time I'm joined by musician Xan Tyler. Hello, Xan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. We're here to talk initially about Clarion Call, your collaboration with Mad Professor, but I'm sure we're going to talk about much more. But let's start off with Clarion Call and working with Mad Professor.
Yeah, it was supposed to be out this week, but we've had a little bit of a delay. I don't know quite what happened with the digital distribution, but maybe next week it's out. But yeah, it's sort of been a bit of a long journey to get to this point because we started working on this project 3 years ago.
Right.
How did it all start? I mean, we worked together 20 years ago on Mission Control, which I'm sure I've told you about before, which was a one album, and it was on Pop Tones, and it was a great album. Loved it. Had a guest vocal with Lee Scratch Perry. Didn't do huge things, but people that knew it loved it, if you know what I mean. One of those albums. So we've stayed in touch ever since, Mad Professor and I, and we've sort of just every now and then check in with each other. And I think we sort of tried to work on something maybe 10 years ago, and it just didn't quite come off for whatever reason.
Right.
And then more recently, 3 years ago, whatever it was, he sent me a couple of tracks and said, are you interested in doing some vocals with these? And I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. Sent him back. And I think the first one was Clarion Call, or maybe Silver and Gold. And he sent back a text message. And he's not a very sweary person generally, but it had a few, it was like, I can't, stress out good this is, it's really good, and I was like, oh, that's very positive response. So he said, you up for more? And I said, yeah, well, let's do it. So I decided I'd send him a few songs that I'd been writing that I thought would work well, just little demos with me and the guitar, and we just kind of bounced backwards and forwards for a little while, and then it was kind of like, well, we've got enough songs to, initially we thought maybe an EP. So I went down and recorded the first maybe 4, I think it probably was, and they sounded really good. And then I was like, look, I think we should do an album, and he sort of agreed, and then we just did a bit more. But and then of course COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I think actually my last studio session, like outside of this building, was at a rework, and it was just literally finishing the last vocals back February 2020. Yeah. That lost year, it's really weird, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah. So then it was kind of like, well, God knows what we're doing now. And I actually was really gutted because I thought that's kind of screwed that whole album probably. It's everything's just going to stop, and the chances of us picking up that momentum, that sort of energy that we'd sort of got, felt really unlikely. And also Mad Professor's in the 41st year of making records, and keeps talking about wanting to retire, but I don't think he ever will, because he's addicted to it really. But and so there's probably a bit of him that's a bit like, okay, no, I want to slow this down and maybe do a bit less. At least that's what he was saying at the time. So I wasn't sure if our project would slip into that kind of, just wasn't to be kind of a place. But anyway, so here we are, and yeah, I can't really remember at what point we sort of picked it all up again and went, right, let's go. But it has been slow just to sort of get to this point. It's been very much let's just see how it's all going,
because I'm right in saying there's other people involved as well. It's not just the two of you, is that right?
Well, there's other musicians that have played on the album, of course. Yeah, I mean, he has a sort of almost like a house band, really, like a studio band. So a lot of these tracks had been around for a while, and it's quite a sort of thing in this sort of reggae world to sort of use rhythms again and again. So some of these tracks will have been used in various, they mutate into other things, which I quite like. They sort of have their own journey, and they do different things, these songs, these tunes, and they get turned into different things by different people, wildly different things. So some of them, they've already pre-existed in that way, and then some of them, I wrote, you know, with this in mind.
Yeah.
And so those were the ones that we got in people and built from scratch, you know. We got a couple of horn players in, friends of mine. You know, so it's been lovely actually. It's been a really nice kind of collective kind of
Yeah.
thing, you know, group thing.
So what were did you have original plans for it in terms of you're going to release, and then were you going to do live shows or anything like that? And how does that change to now? Do you approach it in a very different way, releasing it now than you would have done before COVID and everything?
Yeah. I mean, I think if we didn't have COVID, we probably would be doing, you know, nice launch party and a tour, and you know, or at least a bunch of gigs. I mean, my professor's on the road pretty solidly under normal circumstances. It's quite unbelievable the amount of shows that he does in a year, you know, and even with COVID, he's got fairly impressive, you know, bunch of dates there. So I mean, he has sort of said, would you be able to, are you up for it, you know? And in principle, obviously I am, but I can't be getting stuck in any countries or anything. So I've got a
Yeah.
family and stuff. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, we'll have to play that one by ear. So we can't really plan a tour. We can't really plan launch parties and things like that like we normally would. Even vinyl, there's, you know, 8-month waiting list or longer. He said he's never in 40 years known it this bad
Yeah.
to get vinyl pressed, you know, because the backlog is so enormous. So even that is on hold. So it really is just a digital release at the moment. But I kind of feel like that's not a bad thing. It will just tick along and it'll be a slow burn, and I don't have a problem with that, you know. And he said actually quite a lot of stuff that he's done in the past has worked that way really nicely. It's just bubbled along, and then sometimes 2 or 3 years later it just goes, you know. And so, but the response so far has been amazing. I mean, we've had really great reviews and we've had lots of really positive feedback from the people that have heard it. So
Yeah, I've been reading some of the reviews. You have had some cracking reviews, definitely.
yeah, really great. So, and there's a few more to come. I've heard reviews wise, so fingers crossed those come through. So yeah, just do what you can, really, you know.
Yeah. I think actually it's something that a lot of music lovers maybe don't realize at the moment, but you know, there is this problem with getting vinyl and getting things made just now, that there's this huge problem getting. I've had a lot of people whose albums were expected to come out during the summer, and now it's not coming out till autumn or even later than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, also, you know, albums that sort of came out just before, and then the plan would have been a big tour to promote that album, and then it's like, oh, this album's out there and it's kind of dangling for people, you know, and they can't get out and promote it. That's really frustrating. God, it's had such a massive impact on music, hasn't it?
Yeah, no,
I'm
absolutely.
hoping that in some ways that, you know, moving forward, there'll be some positive stuff coming out of it. I think that there's a much better discussion going on around streaming, and, you know, the fact that people don't earn anything from their music being played thousands of times all over the internet, you know. And I think a lot of people, music lovers, you know, that consume music, didn't know that. I mean, the amount of times I've had that conversation, God, I didn't even know that, you know.
No,
So I think that's something that's come out of this, you know.
and I've noticed that some people now, when they're releasing tracks that maybe they would normally have tried to do in a live show, are making videos. This is something that they're doing for, almost going back to when Michael Jackson released a video for each track on Thriller or something like that. You know, people are looking at different ways, I think, of kind of grabbing people's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having this very conversation with Ariwa yesterday in terms of that, because we've got videos for each song pretty much, and you know, and each time you release, like you say, you release a video, you can re-engage with people about the project, and maybe grab those that didn't listen the first time or whatever. But I know for me, like the whole just going back to the sort of changes that the COVID thing has made, you know, I think it's forced us to do things differently in all sectors, and for me it's been really good to sort of force me into doing stuff like this, you know, which I would have run a mile from, really, to be brutally honest.
hope not.
Well, you know, you're very lovely, and it's nice to chat to you. But you know,
Yes, I do know. I understand. Yeah. So talking about last year, you released an album in collaboration with the producer Kramer. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I guess that was impacted as well by everything that went on.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I guess it was. I mean, we hadn't had any plans to tour or anything. And he's in America, obviously, and I'm here. There may have been some more demos or follow-up recording. I don't know, but anyway. So yeah, that's Let It Come Down for anyone that doesn't know it. And we again, that was a kind of took a while to get to that point. You know, we recorded some of the stuff 2 years before. That's a tractor, in case you're wondering. And then I think this, you know, we did a couple of songs together, my songs together, and that's when we kind of decided, well, he decided that he wanted me to work on this collaboration with him, which was an enormous honor. And then we met in Amsterdam about a year later and recorded most of the album there. And then, you know, it's a good year after that it came out. So, you know, that again was and in that time, Joyful Noise and Shimmy Disc had sort of decided that they would work together in sort of bringing, you know, Shimmy Disc back after many years of not releasing records. So he's now fully immersed in running a record label again, which I don't think he was really expecting to be doing, but he is, and he's doing it amazingly, and there's loads of incredible stuff coming out on it. So yeah, I mean, we were lucky we got our vinyl out in time, and it's done well. And yeah, I love the album.
I mean, for those that don't know, Shimmy Disc was the label that Kramer ran back in the day that had bands like Galaxy 500, Low, Will Oldham. I mean, it was an incredible label. So to have that back with us is an incredible result of collaborating with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I guess I'm a little bit of history there in that the album that I made with him was the first release on the new label, on the new Shimmy Disc label. So that's quite something, bit of history. But yeah, it is absolutely. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are very, very excited about the prospect of, you know, all of these bands that he, you know, Jad Fair and people like that. I think Kramer's just releasing something with him now. And then all the new stuff to come.
Yeah.
And there's quite a lot of people in Scotland involved. You know, he's signed quite a lot of Scottish artists. So constant follower.
Oh, really? Excellent.
Yeah. So I think their album is October on Shimmy Disc, which I've had the pleasure of hearing in advance. It's amazing. Yeah, so yeah, it's great. It's an amazing album, and still in love with it.
And if the legacy is that you've got Kramer producing lots of Scottish bands, that's something to be proud of, definitely.
Well, I don't know if I can take credit for that, but
so let's go back and talk about your life in music, Xan, going back to the beginning, because it's a fascinating one. You know, you've been involved with so many different people and so many types of music as well. How did you get started?
Sort of slightly fell into it, really. I was away, you know, left school, joined a band, kind of singing backing vocals. You know, I loved singing, but I didn't sort of have huge desires as a schoolgirl to be a singer as such. In fact, I never sang in front of anybody at that stage. But then I, you know, was kind of in with a bunch of musicians, and somebody said, come and do backing vocal, and I kind of went, all right then, you know, it was one of those, and just got the bug, you know, just got the bug. My first gig was at the Rock Garden, and it was a 13-piece band, a huge, ridiculous number of people on the smallest stage in the world, you know, and I thought I was going to die from nerves. Actually, like, thought I could possibly die from being this nervous, but you know, got through it, survived, loved it, and just carried on with them. That was a band called Death Bang Party, which did a lot of really cool stuff. It was an original band, quite risque for the time, slightly sort of, I don't know, B-52s meets Toots and the Maytals horns, and just a real mishmash of stuff, but quite risque as well, and very theatrical. Lots of dancing and throwing ourselves around the stage. And we did lots at the Edinburgh Festival. We got best newcomers, and we did loads of really cool stuff. But we were kind of a bit risque, so we never got signed. Lots of A&Rs used to come down and go, "God, this is amazing," but I can't sign it because there's a naked man on stage, and he's swearing, and some of the titles were on back then anyway. So anyway, and then when that folded, it was like, okay, what do I do? Don't really know what I'm doing. Shall I just give this a go? And I just found a bunch of bands, cover bands and tribute bands, and got involved in being a music agent as well. So I was kind of booking bands as well, back in sort of days where colleges had lots of money. So it was largely on the college circuit, doing freshers balls and summer balls and Christmas balls and stuff. Lots of really well paid tribute bands like Bootleg Beatles and people like that. I mean, they went out for huge sums of money. It was amazing, really, when you think back. And that's all probably completely dried up now, I'd imagine. So I was kind of in the band, booking the band, tour managing the band, had many hats, and I loved it, and I did that for years. And then a friend of mine who was a drummer in the Low Fidelity All Stars, don't know if you remember the drummer. Sadly, he passed away 3 years ago. A really very dear friend of mine, so still kind of can't believe that. But anyway, he said to me, "Did you know that Alan McGee is looking for a singer?" And he said something along the lines of looking for Dusty Springfield with attitude, or something along those lines. And I was like, "No, I didn't." And he said, "You just got to send something in." Right. I was like, "Oh, I don't know." I mean, this isn't the official press story, by the way. This isn't the press story that we had when we were doing Technique. We told some other completely different story, but this is actually what really happened. So I sent in my tape and a photograph, and I did actually see the bag of cassettes that my cassette came out, a little cassette came out of, and so I was up against quite a lot of people. So it was quite amazing that I got through to that, and went and met them, and I was a bit like, I didn't really feel like I belonged, in a lot of ways, but that was that. And so I joined Technique with Kate, who's Alan's wife, who has a huge musical history herself, but unfortunately lots of the British press couldn't really get past the fact that she was married to McGee. So it was always about that. But we did all right in other countries. And then after that, what did I do? Yeah, I did some stuff on Positiva with Timo Maas. And then I did a whole bunch of sort of session-y, dancey records with various people. And then I had children, moved to Scotland and stuff. So there was kind of a bit of a gap there where I didn't do a lot of stuff. I've always, done music of some sort, but I wasn't releasing films or stuff. And then 2016 released an EP. 2014 and then 2016, I think, and then Kramer, and now here. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey.
But across that, as I say, you've covered many genres. I mean, your solo stuff that I've heard anyway has been mostly kind of singer-songwriter towards the acoustic end of things. Well, would you be doing more of that, or is that too much far in the future to say? More solo?
No, I'm very delighted to say, in fact, I've not said this to anybody outside of my friends, that Creative Scotland have given me a grant, which is amazing, a complete lifeline. So I'll be making an album, which I've already started writing. I'm working with Boo Huadine and Mark Freegard on that. So yeah, it's exciting, really, really super exciting. So in terms of genres, I kind of want it to really reflect a little bit of everything that I've done, whilst it will probably largely feel quite sort of alt folky and I don't know, actually. I don't want to say that because who
Okay.
knows what's going to happen? Who knows
Okay.
what's gonna happen?
It's exciting enough that you're going to be doing one. That's
It is.
fantastic news.
It's really exciting. It's really, really exciting. And it's really nice to be focused on that. Just, you know, I'm researching it and things at the moment. And it's all kind of, you know, I won't tell you everything about the plans for it, but that basically I'm sort of looking at women, strong women as inspiration for it. So there's a song that I did on Let It Come Down, Vicky, which had a real impact, you know, and it really got me thinking about a lot of stuff, but it really touched a lot of people. I had a lot of people get in touch with me saying that they, you know, really identified with this idea of, you know, giving a name to this internal negative self-sabotagey voice that you have in your head, and how it kind of helped them to do that. And so taking that idea forward and expanding on that stuff, I wanted to sort of write an album that is sort of inspired by strong women. So it's some imagined, some historical, some that I know, you know, and yeah, so I'm doing lots of reading about various people, and and now I've got about 5 albums in my head, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh my god, she needs a whole album, and oh my god, I'm going to write about that. So it's great.
Oh, why not? That's really exciting news. Fantastic. Maybe I can get you back on to talk about that in detail once it's about to come out. That would be great.
That would be lovely. That would be really lovely. Yeah.
Well, Xan, thanks so much for talking to me today, getting up and having a chat early in the morning. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. No, it's lovely. It's lovely to catch up. Thank you.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different.